Over 2,000 years ago, an elderly man with a crane-like white hair and youthful appearance left the capital city of Luoyang and traveled west, exploring the mountains and rivers. One day he arrived at Hongwu Pass, where the hospitable commander invited the old man to his home as a guest. The two of them had a delightful conversation. The commander was deeply impressed by the old man's profound knowledge and remarkable insights. He earnestly said, "Before you retire from the world, you must leave behind a written work for future generations." The old man accepted the commander's suggestion and stayed at his residence, where he wrote a grand total of 5,000 characters. Thus, a timeless classic came into existence known as the Tao Te Ching, and the elderly man was none other than Laozi, the founder of the Taoist school of thought. Wu Wei, non-action, is one of the core ideas in the Tao Te Ching. Why does the Tao Te Ching, hailed as the king among books, not advocate effort? How should we interpret Laozi's concept of Wu Wei? It is a work that, apart from the Bible, has been translated into foreign languages the most, making it the oldest and most widely recognized philosophical classic in the world. Hello. Today we will interpret the book Tao Te Ching, written by Laozi. Next, let us traverse time and space to explore this philosophical treasure left over 2,000 years ago. We believe that through today's interpretation, you will gain a profound understanding of the philosophical ideas in the Tao Te Ching. We will divide our interpretation of this book into 3 parts. Part 1, Laozi's important philosophical idea of Wu Wei. Part 2, Laozi's understanding of the way of heaven. Part 3, Laozi's proposition of the way of humanity. Laozi's important philosophical idea, Wu Wei. First, let's take a look at Laozi's important philosophical idea, Wu Wei. The term natural first appeared in Laozi's Tao Te Ching, where he wrote, "Man follows the earth follows heaven follows the Tao, and the Tao follows its own nature. People follow the rules of the earth follows the rules of heaven follows the rules of the Tao, and ultimately, the Tao returns to its own nature." The Tao follows its own nature emphasizes that the essence of the Tao is natural and spontaneous, following the original nature of things. The Tao follows its own nature is the essence of the Tao Te Ching's ideas. All things in the universe must follow the laws of natural and spontaneous, and cannot be forced arbitrarily. Therefore, Laozi's Wu Wei represents a certain attitude and realm of life. To achieve a state of being able to do everything, one must have the mentality of doing without doing. Doing without doing further elaborates on Wu Wei. If people act in accordance with nature, once conditions are ripe, things will naturally fall into place. Taste without taste raises it to another level based on doing without doing. It means that only when a person is in a tranquil state can they truly experience the happiness of life. From this sentence, we can also see that Laozi was a person of detachment and tranquility. He believed that people should approach tasks with a non-forcing attitude. In other words, people should not be too eager for quick success and instant benefits, but should act from the heart, firmly believing that by naturally cultivating good causes, good results will naturally follow. Because the Tao follows its own nature, striving is a false concept, and insistence is also a false concept. Let's take an example. You feel particularly happy when playing basketball, and you lose track of time while playing. So you play basketball every day, and as time goes by, your basketball skills will undoubtedly improve. When we see how hard Kobe Bryant worked at basketball, it is superficial. The core is his deep love for the sport that supports him. He simply followed this passion and wanted to excel in it. However, if a person feels that playing basketball requires effort and perseverance, that person actually doesn't enjoy playing basketball deep down. They might play basketball to show off or compete, or to gain the admiration of girls. But if the initial intention is not for utility but for love, then it aligns with one's own path. Thus, following the natural way, going along with it, naturally leads to a more focused and selfless dedication. One forgets how others evaluate oneself and forgets about honor or dishonor. One simply enjoys doing what they love, driven by their inner passion. They follow their own path in their actions, and the more they do this, the more they can reach heights that others see as insurmountable. However, for some people, they may find persistence and effort in playing basketball tiresome. They feel tired because they don't truly enjoy what they're doing. They find it boring and mundane, so they need perseverance and effort to achieve it. For someone, reading is an enchanting experience, finding the information in books particularly interesting. It satisfies their curiosity and interest while expanding their knowledge. They don't find reading tiresome and don't believe that a lifelong pursuit of reading requires perseverance and effort to achieve. But for others, seeing a book gives them a headache, and after reading for a while, they feel tired and sleepy. That's because they're not doing what they love, not following their own path in their actions. Therefore, the Tao follows its own nature means that, for individuals, they need to find that natural thing in their essence, the career they genuinely love. Why did Steve Jobs repeatedly emphasize the importance of passion? Without passion, he would never have achieved the miracle of creating Apple, because entrepreneurship is incredibly challenging. This is his own statement in an interview. Ordinary people start businesses for fame and fortune, but he was driven by passion and altruism. So when faced with immense difficulties, which are tiring and arduous, ordinary people would have been scared away long ago. But he wasn't motivated by fame and fortune. He was supported by love and altruism, so he overcame one difficulty after another. It appears as if he worked hard and persevered, but the core was driven by love and passion. He was doing something that didn't require conquering his own laziness. It was something he naturally wanted to do. He experienced a sense of fulfillment and happiness. Effort and perseverance are how others perceive him. People aspire to succeed like him, wanting to become him, but they feel it's challenging, so they need effort and perseverance. Whereas he does it for love because of love. It happens naturally and effortlessly. When it comes to a fable told by Zhuang Tzu, when a person shoots arrows for pleasure, they can be called an archer. If they shoot arrows for the sake of a gold medal, they start to feel anxious. The heavier the intention, the more one will be plagued by worries. In reality, the more wu-wei, non-action, and natural one is, the more one follows their inner passion, the more engaged and precise their skills become. So, if you want your child to study well, what is more long-term and effective, forcing and motivating them through utilitarian means, or cultivating their interest in learning? The answer is self-evident. Legend has it that Lao Tzu lived to be over 160 years old, or some say over 200 years old, precisely because he was serene and non-active, cultivating his body and mind, which allowed him to live a long life. Additionally, while observing the various aspects of the world, Lao Tzu came to the following realization. The living are soft and yielding, the dead are rigid and stiff. The living grass and trees are pliant and fragile, the dead are dry and brittle. Hence those who are rigid and strong are the followers of death, while those who are gentle and weak are the followers of life. This means that when a person is alive, their body is soft and full of vitality. Once they die, their body becomes stiff and lifeless. Similarly, in the growth of plants and trees, they are soft and fragile, but once they die, they become withered and rigid. Lao Tzu discovered that although soft things may appear weak, they are actually full of life. On the other hand, rigid things tend to lose vitality and gradually decline. Lao Tzu used water as an example to explain the principle of overcoming the rigid with the flexible. Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water, yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. The soft overcomes the hard, the gentle overcomes the rigid. Everyone knows this, but no one can practice it. Water is the softest and most powerless thing among all things in the world, yet it can destroy things that are much harder than itself. For example, water dripping on a stone may seem weak, but over time it can penetrate and erode even the hardest stone, overcoming formidable opponents. Therefore, Lao Tzu advocated that in one's actions and dealings, one should not be overly rigid. Such rigidity easily succumbs to setbacks and destruction. It is better to adopt a gentle approach, patiently accumulate strength, and ultimately overcome more powerful things, thus realizing one's own value. In Lao Tzu's view, the more resilient something is, the greater its hidden potential. Embracing softness and weakness is not passivity or inaction, but a necessary strategy for preserving life and forming the foundation for becoming strong. Additionally, Lao Tzu believed that rulers and administrators in society should also follow the law of natural and spontaneous and implement governing by non-action. As Lao Tzu said, "The best leader, people do not notice their existence. The next best leader, people honor and praise. The next, people fear, and the next, people hate." When the best leader's work is done, the people say, "We did it ourselves." The best ruler is not one who issues commands, but one who creates an environment where the people are in a state of ease and contentment, thereby achieving peace and social stability. This kind of governance is the most natural and spontaneous. From this perspective, Lao Tzu does not advocate centralized and authoritarian rule. In Lao Tzu's view, the essence of governance is non-action while achieving everything, taking the world by not interfering. This advises rulers to prioritize the well-being and prosperity of the people. If the political strategies of rulers result in excessive interference or burdens for the people, the rulers are likely to lose popular support, which goes against the purpose of governing the people. Of course, Lao Tzu's advocacy of governing by non-action does not mean doing nothing. It means that administrators should not go against the objective laws and manage the people according to their own whims. Nature has its own developmental laws, and society has its own inherent rules. Anyone who violates these established laws will face negative consequences or even severe punishment. The way of heaven as perceived by Lao Tzu. Now let's move on to the second part, the way of heaven as perceived by Lao Tzu. The Tao Te Ching consists of over 5,000 characters with more than 70 references to the Tao. It begins with the statement, "The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name." This means that the Tao that can be expressed in words is not the true Tao. In other words, the real Tao has no name or form. It is invisible and intangible. Immediately following this, Lao Tzu writes, "The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of all things." Here it means that the Tao is the origin of heaven and earth, existing before the birth of all things. The Tao exists within all things in the universe and is inseparable from heaven and earth. Understanding the way of heaven also means comprehending the principles that govern all things. Among the various principles of the way of heaven, Lao Tzu highly values benefit without harm. In a sense, benefit without harm is the fundamental principle of the way of heaven. Heaven gives birth to all things, and it is beneficial to all things without any intention to harm. Lao Tzu even compared the way of heaven to water, saying, "The highest goodness is like water. Water benefits all things without contention, flowing to places that people detest. In this, it is close to the way." Water is the source of all things, nurturing everything in the world without contention. It is widely known that water flows to low places and often occupies the undesirable places. However, it is precisely because of this that water can encompass everything, as it holds all rivers in its embrace and has great capacity. Water is closest to the way, permeating and benefiting the world, selflessly contributing without seeking rewards. Furthermore, Lao Tzu believed that all things in the universe have dualistic opposition, and when things develop to a certain extent, they will transform in the opposite direction. This is what we often refer to as the principle of the extreme turns into its opposite. The great square has no corners. The great vessel is never filled. The great sound is silent. The great image is formless. The great debate is without words. Here it reveals the law of evolution for all things. Development is not a singular and static process. Opposing things often transform into each other. Straight can become bent, and cleverness can turn into clumsiness. Why is that? Because all things in the universe are composed of yin and yang, two opposing yet unified forces. All things carry yin and embrace yang, blending the life energy together. All things and phenomena are formed through the interaction and influence of yin and yang. It is the intermingling and mutual restraint of yin and yang that achieve a dynamic state of equilibrium, known as harmony. If intervention is carried out blindly, deliberately increasing or decreasing a certain factor, it is easy to disrupt the relative balance and lead to backlash and collapse in the system. Taking the example of pulling the sprouts to help them grow, the growth of seedlings is influenced by positive factors such as sunlight, water, and nutrients, as well as limiting factors such as soil and time. If one does not understand the growth principles of seedlings and blindly aids their growth, it can lead to the withering of the seedlings. In all systems, the interaction of yin and yang exists in a dynamic state of equilibrium. Blindly reducing the restrictive power of yin will indirectly reduce the growth power of yang. Laozi's theory of yin and yang can be considered as the earliest form of dialectical thinking, predating materialist dialectics by 2,000 years. Laozi tells us that the extreme turns into its opposite. Excessive growth leads to decline. These are the underlying principles of the operation of the way of heaven. From this perspective, Laozi's simple dialectical thinking has touched upon the core and essence of materialist dialectics. It is not difficult to understand why Laozi's philosophical ideas still possess great vitality more than 2,000 years later. The enduring influence of Laozi's Tao Te Ching lies in its applicability to all things, even after the passage of many years. Now let's examine Laozi's understanding of the human way, a perspective that rejects the concept of using force in warfare, advocates a return to simplicity in social views, and promotes contentment and joy in life. During the spring and autumn and warring states periods, there was constant conflict and warfare among the feudal states, plunging the lives of ordinary people into chaos. Laozi, who upheld the Tao, strongly detested war. He mentioned, "Using the way to assist the ruler does not rely on military force to dominate the world. Such actions will have negative consequences. Where troops are stationed, thorns and brambles grow. After a great army is formed, calamitous years will follow. Those who assist emperors and kings with the way will not seek dominance through military power, as they will quickly face the retaliation of nature. Wherever armies are stationed and conflicts arise, the land will become barren and people will suffer. Heaven, with its benevolent nature, nurtures all living beings, while war and turmoil bring calamity to nations and people, causing great suffering. Such actions that violate the way of heaven will undoubtedly invite severe disasters." As mentioned at the beginning, Laozi says that although soft things may appear weak, they are full of vitality. On the other hand, rigid things are prone to losing vitality and gradually leading to extinction. Kings who rely on war and other forms of authoritarianism are actually more likely to perish faster. Here, Laozi provides detailed guidance for all future rulers on the correct attitude toward military power, warning them not to be bellicose, fond of war, or excessively rely on armed forces. The humanistic spirit embodied in this perspective is still worth learning for future generations. Facing political turmoil and societal chaos in the late spring and autumn period, Laozi also proposed the principle of returning to simplicity in dealing with the world. Laozi believed that the most original state of human nature is simplicity and truth. In chaotic times, people should return to their pure and natural disposition, like innocent babies. When simplicity is dispersed, it becomes tools. When the sage uses them, he becomes the ruler, and thus the great mechanism is not cut. Laozi metaphorically compares the innate simplicity of human nature to the most powerful weapon. When sages make reasonable use of it, they can become leaders among officials, occupying the highest positions, and society can return to a harmonious state. In Laozi's view, simplicity and naturalness are not only the mysteries of the way, but also the essence of human nature. That's why Laozi often uses babies or infants to metaphorically describe human nature, and advocates the importance of returning to simplicity. At the same time, Laozi emphasizes the concept of contentment and joy. No disaster is greater than not being content. No fault is greater than wanting more. Therefore, he who knows contentment is always satisfied. Among all the misfortunes, nothing is more painful than lack of contentment, and among all faults, nothing is more serious than insatiable desires. Only the satisfaction brought by contentment is true abundance. The book, A New Account of Tales of the World from the Wei Jin and Northern and Southern Dynasties period, records the story of Shi Chong from the Western Jin dynasty, who indulged in extravagance and eventually died in the Eastern market because of it. Shi Chong was the son of Shi Bao, a founding hero of the Western Jin dynasty. He was a typical second-generation official and second-generation wealthy. According to historical records, Shi Chong accumulated enormous wealth, and his family's residence was as magnificent as a palace. They enjoyed extravagant meals with exquisite delicacies. Shi Chong's extravagance even surpassed that of the king and exceeded the limits of a subject, ultimately provoking the dissatisfaction of Emperor Wu of Jin, Sima Yan. This led to the tragic fate of his entire family being executed. The lesson of Shi Chong's demise due to greed also affirms the cause and effect relationship of Lao Tzu's statement, "No crime is greater than having excessive desires, and no disaster is greater than not being content." Lao Tzu regarded the philosophy of contentment and joy as extremely important. It not only determines one's fortune and honor, but also serves as a standard to judge true wealth. He who knows contentment is truly wealthy, meaning that genuine abundance is not external material wealth or fame and status, but internal contentment. In Lao Tzu's view, human desires are boundless, and relentlessly pursuing them does not lead to satisfaction. Therefore, Lao Tzu advocates finding happiness and contentment in what one already possesses. By doing so, not only can one avoid calamities, but also attain genuine abundance. Of course, Lao Tzu does not advocate completely eradicating basic physiological desires. The sage attends to the belly, not to the eye. The sage seeks to be well-fed and well-clothed, content and joyful without pursuing sensual pleasures and unrestrained desires. Therefore, it is more accurate to say that Lao Tzu's concept of contentment is a precious value orientation and life attitude he promotes, rather than a demand on people's inner selves. Returning to simplicity, the Great Way is profoundly simple. As Lao Tzu said, "The way gives birth to one, one gives birth to two, two gives birth to three, three gives birth to all things." Everything begins with a simple one and ultimately returns to that original one. Life is the same. When lived to the extreme, it becomes plain and simple. When approaching the end, it becomes clear and tranquil. When life returns to simplicity and tranquility, the mysteries of the universe and the philosophy of existence become within reach. This concludes our interpretation of the Tao Te Ching in this episode. If you have your own insights into the Tao Te Ching, please feel free to share them. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it with your family or friends. Thanks for watching.